Hello community, by the end of today's episode, you will have a clear understanding of the connection between Hashimoto's and hair loss. You will be armed with knowledge and tips on how to address this issue. You will know what signs to look out for, the best hair care practice to adapt, and when it might be time to speak or to seek help from a professional like Trichologist. Hello Hashi Stars, welcome to today's episode where we will do a deep dive into the often overlooked aspect of Hashimoto's and its impact in our lives. I'm your host, Nataliia, and today we have a very special guest, Trichologist Kimberly Vaughn. She's a proud owner of HPI Hair Clinic with years of experience in the field of trichology. Kimberly specializes in diagnosing and treating hair and scalp disorders. Her expertise extends to understanding the complex relationship between chronic conditions like Hashimoto's and hair health. We're so lucky to have her on Hashimoto's Nutrition RX podcast because she brings a wealth of knowledge about hair health, especially in relationship to thyroid disorder. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you, Nataliia. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show and to share some of our information and some of the education that you have grown so well to be known for, and that is helping those with Hashimoto's and hair loss. So I'm glad we're here.
Yes, and Kimberly, you're not a stranger to the podcasting. We actually had a podcast together, Thyroid Hair Loss Connection, for 2 long, beautiful seasons.
Yes.
And then we kind of parted because we had so much more to say in our related fields. So now you have your own podcast, Hair Loss, Restore Your Roots and Confidence. Mm-hmm. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being on Hashimoto's Nutrition RX podcast.
Yeah.
So let's jump into our first question. Kimberly, can you explain to us the link between Hashimoto's and hair loss? What's going on biologically that affects our hair so significantly?
Wow. How much time did you say you had today? No, I'm kidding. We'll go with this as a very high-level explanation to help the listener. So more importantly, I think what we need to understand is Hashimoto disease is an autoimmune disease. The next is that it affects our thyroid. Our thyroid is the general caretaker over our body and all of the rest of our immune system. When our thyroid is not functioning properly, then therefore the rest of our body is not functioning properly. So the connection is a physiological one that many times causes the outset, right, of issues with our hair, our skin, and our nails. We also know that when there is a misdiagnosed or a Hashimoto's mislevel or thyroid mislevel, if you will, on medications, then you'll see not just only dry hair, brittle hair, thin hair, hair shedding. You'll also see some of the other conditions such as weight gain, weight loss, cold hands, cold feet, right? So it's a very complicated little tiny organ that very much impacts the hair. And many times, we sometimes as trichologists will be the first to know and to understand that the thyroid levels are truly off because someone comes to us first because of the hair loss.
Absolutely. So you kind of led me into the second question. How can we differentiate hair loss, Hashimoto's related hair loss to other types of hair losses like alopecia areata?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, alopecia areata is definitely an autoimmune condition, just as with Hashimoto's thyroid disease, right? And so what happens with, just if the listener in the audience doesn't know, what happens with alopecia areata is that we lose our hair in small, many times circle areas on the scalp. And sometimes those happen with triggers, not only with a change in the thyroid, but there is very much a link to thyroid disease, and alopecia areata, along with alopecia universalis as well as alopecia totalis, and that is where our body and our hair and our head is completely void of hair. But back to the Hashimoto's is how do we define the difference? So if you're just having ongoing shedding, or if your hair is starting to feel dry on the ends or dry throughout the entire scalp, if the scalp is starting to be tender, or if for some reason that when you shampoo that you notice that your head hurts, right? Those can all be signs of an imbalance in our thyroid, along with other forms of autoimmune. But dry hair, brittle hair, chronic shedding of the hair, and then the ends breaking are all signs of areas that we need to focus on that many times lead back to an imbalance in the thyroid.
It's interesting that you said, brittle hair, dry hair, split ends. That's exactly the signs that I had when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 10 years ago. And the hair shedding, just a chronic, slow, ongoing hair shedding, that was the biggest sign that I had before my diagnosis.
Yes. And as I said, many times when clients come into us and we'll ask, oh, have you had your thyroid levels checked recently? Oh, sure, they're normal. And I said, well, do you mind if I dig a little deeper and ask, what is normal? Can we look at your labs? And then in addition, which labs were really drawn? And I think you and I both are very evidence-based in our approach. And so we make sure that we really dive into a full series of labs, and that is not just a TSH, right? There's a lot more to the thyroid than that.
Absolutely. And it's another podcast episode, right? Talking about normal thyroid labs. So let's continue talking. Are there any specific signs of hair and scalp changes that we should watch out for as indicators or of worsening or improving thyroid functions?
Yes. So the first answer is that those same symptoms that we just talked about. So the ends that are being brittle. So if you have color treated hair, it is imperative that you really pay attention to what's happening to the ends of the hair, because you will find that your hair continues to get shorter, not longer, and you haven't even had a haircut. So it's very important to monitor the length and the growth of your hair. Next is that if you are starting to have this chronic dryness and shedding, or the extreme of that is this oiliness on the scalp, right? That the hair lays flat or it just sticks to the skin. That's typically a sign of a thyroid imbalance in some sort, right? Hot, cold. You have opposites that we see that really are symptoms when our thyroid is not balanced. And for me personally, I've shared this before on some of our podcasts together, but I as well have Hashimoto's. And so my symptoms are quite different than others. And so I'm fortunate, and I have not had issues with severe hair loss, but I have severity issues with all the others. And so I have Raynaud's disease. My hands are always turning blue. My fingers are turning, my toes turn blue, right? So I just think there's so many areas and conditions that we need to be right on top of. And hair is certainly one that we see every single day.
Absolutely. And we all have the same diagnosis, Hashimoto's, right? But the way the disease manifests itself is very different. Like you said, you didn't have problems with hair, but developing other diseases. And unfortunately, a lot of people with Hashimoto's have other autoimmune diseases, just like alopecia areata.
Yes.
So can nutrient deficiencies cause hair loss?
Oh, of course. And I think, I'll speak to this a little bit, but, you're the master of this. And when we talk about nutrient deficiencies, we have to be so focused on our key nutrients in our system, such as iron, such as our vitamins, such as our minerals. I lump those somewhat separately, but yet together, because the proteins and the iron in our body, I think that we forget that it's not just about the amount that we eat, it's the amount that we absorb. And so if our body truly is not absorbing those proteins and the iron, and it's not spreading throughout the system so that we have the strength and that our cells are being re-energized from this protein, then we're going to see a slowdown in hair growth. We're going to see a miniaturization in the hair, and many times that the hair will also lose its luster. So you'll see less shine and less bounce to the hair when those iron levels are below where they should be. Then when we talk about supplements such as vitamins, boy, there's a whole host. I mean, talk about another episode. There's so many. But, our keys when we're talking about trace metals and minerals and vitamins is that really thinking about the omegas, thinking about the vitamin Ds, the vitamin Bs, and then selenium and zinc are key. One of the areas that I think a lot of people forget are the metals and the minerals in our systems, such as amino acids and such as copper. And we've learned through science, really 3 to 4 years ago, how important that the copper mineral was to growth and the turnover of the cells in the body. It really stabilizes the hair growth. It keeps the hair growing longer. And it's really, really important to have a copper level that is optimal. And so I would say that's kind of our high level there, but we could certainly dive in a lot deeper. But I think it's important that your listeners really be serious about this and get the tests, right? Make sure they understand where the levels are.
Absolutely. Deficiencies can have a significant impact on your hair health, especially in the context of Hashimoto's, because Hashimoto's can affect your digestive system, leading to reduced absorption of key nutrients that are vital for maintaining healthy hair. Some critical nutrients whose deficiencies can lead to hair health issues include, like you said, iron. This is a common deficiencies in those of us with Hashimoto's, and iron is critical for hair growth as it helps carry oxygen to your hair follicles, and low iron levels can lead to hair thinning and increased shedding. The next one you already touched on is zinc, because zinc plays a vital role in hair tissue growth and repair. It also helps keep the oil glands around the follicles working properly. That's why, Kimberly, you said, oily hair, that's a sign of maybe zinc deficiency. Next one is selenium. This one, like you said, particularly important for thyroid function as it helps convert T4 into the more active T3. Selenium deficiency can exacerbate hypothyroidism symptoms, including hair loss. The next one is vitamin D. Often low in us with Hashimoto's, vitamin D is important for immune regulation and hair follicle cycling. Next one is B vitamins, right? Especially biotin, vitamin B7, which is known for its role in hair health. B12 is another crucial vitamin that supports red blood cells formation and can impact hair growth. And if levels are low, addressing nutritional deficiencies can make a big difference. And it has to be a multi-phased approach, right? Like dietary changes, incorporating a diet rich in iron, like leafy greens, lean meats, and legumes. For zinc, we need to start eating seeds, nuts, whole grains, and naturally selenium-rich foods like Brazil nuts and seafood. They all can help to minimize the deficiency. For vitamin D, exposure to sunlight is beneficial, but food sources like fatty fish and fortified products are also important. B vitamins are abundant in whole grains, meats, eggs, and dairy. Now, when it comes to supplementation, based on your blood test and your specific needs, supplementing might be necessary to restore optimal nutrient levels. However, it's so important to do that under the supervision, as some supplements might interfere with your thyroid medication or exacerbate certain conditions. Improving gut health, of course, also important since gut health can significantly affect nutrient absorption. Supporting your gut is crucial. This can involve probiotics, prebiotics, and diet rich in fiber. Of course, managing stress and reducing inflammation through lifestyle choices also plays a key role. Now, Kimberly, we covered the dietary approaches. What are the treatments or therapies do you recommend to help improve hair density and health?
Oh, great. I would love to touch on this. And I'm going to start actually with the body because we've really, through this entire episode, we've talked about the importance of nutrients and making sure that the body is in key optimal shape. So we need to think body first. And let's get to the root cause of the problem. So let's look at the holistic piece. Let's take the entire landscape of the body. Let's dive into that, get some testing done, and make sure that we're treating our whole structure first. The next is that we want to think about the scalp, right? Everyone goes the reverse. They go hair, scalp, body, but we really need to think body, scalp, hair. And so the next is the scalp. So the scalp has to be clean. It has to be free of toxins and debris on the scalp. The scalp also is where we build up a lot of inflammation. And when inflammation is regularly present in the scalp, it causes stress on the hair follicles. So we need to be able to reduce that stress and that inflammation. We recommend that there are detox treatments performed on the scalp. We like to see those be very aggressive initially. And if you can get to a clinic, such as a Trichologist clinic that is performing detox scalp treatments where HPI, our treatments last for about 45 minutes. But we like to have those treatments performed weekly for at least a series of 4 weeks. And those are considered scalp detox treatments. The next treatment that's really critical for that scalp to help move the oxygen flow and get the blood flowing again is a stimulating scalp treatment. So now we've detoxed the scalp. Now we need to go back in and we need to stimulate it. And so it's really critical. These can be done in home with certain stimulating scalp masks and products. And anyone can certainly see our website or the link in the show notes here, and we'll be able to provide more information so that we can have an online assessment that's complimentary to your guests, and we can help them with which products to use on the detox as well as the scalp. Next, then, and last, and not least, because this is where we're all seeing the results, is our hair. What do we do with our hair? So first, we've talked about the brittle, the breaking, the thinness, and the dryness. And so we need to make sure that we're not just coating our hair. Our hair is made of keratin and proteins. And so we need to make sure that the keratin and the proteins are actually getting inside to the hair strands and building the hair from the inside out. The next is that while we're working and keeping the existing hair that we have growing soft, supple, luscious, not oily, not dry, right, in optimal shape, we really need to dive deeply into these aggressive clinical treatments. And we perform and are having tremendous success with platelet-rich plasma injections, and that is where we're drawing full natural platelets from the body and then re-injecting those across the scalp. For females, we need to be particularly concerned, especially when thyroid disorders and Hashimoto's specifically, disease has been diagnosed. We need to make sure that the injections are throughout the entire scalp, because you, as well as anyone else that has gone through thyroid hair loss, you're seeing diffused thinning. So that means the thinning's taking place from the frontal hairline or down around the temples, up over the ears, and all the way around the nape of the neck. So we need to get very up close and personal, and we need to be able to treat that entire scalp. So be very specific on who you're having your treatments from and make sure that they're giving you a complete treatment. The next is microneedling. So microneedling growth factors. So yes, platelets are growth factors. So we can microneedle in those growth factors that we're removing directly from your body, or we can also use even a higher level of growth factor that is coming through an actual system process that is a bioidentical process. Because when someone's platelet count's low, we don't want to go back and microneedle or inject low platelets. They're not getting us where we want to be. So we want to emphasize and turn that up 100-fold, right? And make sure that the platelets or the growth factors that we're working into the scalp via injections, via microneedling, are truly getting to the bulge into the hair and all the way into the root and the follicle area. Lastly, two other treatments that we're finding great success with. One is an ultrasound, completely pain-free treatment. And it's amazing because we're seeing, especially with, believe it or not, our curly-haired patients, they're finding more success with chronic shedding when we're performing these ultrasonic treatments. And again, we're applying those with a natural growth factor, but we're seeing great results. The shedding is finally slowing down. The texture of the hair is finally improving, and we see happy, smiley faces as clients leave our office. And then lastly, something we've just started working with are exosome treatments. And so with the effects that exosomes are having in healing across the rest of the body, we're finding that they're very critical in aggressive hair loss, either to stop the shedding and to also regrow the hair as well. So I'm sorry that drug on for a little while, but it's so important because everyone needs to appreciate that you really need to start inside and work outward versus working from the tips to the ends of the hair and working inward.
Kimberly, I want you to keep talking about this because I love this rundown of the most effective treatments. And I myself go to your clinic, and I went there, 2 weeks ago, when I started experiencing shedding. It came out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, something is not right. I got the blood work done the next day. Of course, my thyroid levels were off and I was anemic. So, but to be more proactive, of course, I started on iron pill and adjusted my thyroid medication. But the first thing I did is I called your office and I'm like, girls, you gotta schedule me. For my favorite treatment is microneedling. I used to do a PRP microneedling, and now I do that exosome, the brand new. And I'm going to tell you, the shedding stopped within a week. Like in a week time, half of my hair, if it was shedding 100%, the shedding went down to like 30%. It was drastic. It was incredible. So that's my take on that. That's my favorite treatment. So thank you for explaining everything. I think the last question that our listeners had is that how often do they need to follow up with you? And how often do they need to check? Do they need to be proactive and just come in for treatments? So what's the protocol?
Oh, gosh. Another great question. So thank you. And thank you, audience and listeners, for these. They're great. So first of all, when you are having an aggressive or an acute shed, we need to get that under control, right? You just mentioned this as a personal example. So what we have to do is we have to stay with the patient and with the client on every 30-day basis because we want to see what we are doing and which treatments that we've recommended or protocols that we're using, that they truly are working. And don't get excited because Nataliia had amazing results, right? Within a week. We have some clients who have been in a chronic shed or a chronic telogen effluvium phase because of other underlying issues or medications that they're having to take, that it takes much longer than that. But we like to follow up with patients for at least every month to 6 weeks, the first 6 months of treatment. So we like to be very close to you. We like to help re-educate you on how you're taking care of your hair in the shower, what you're doing for massaging on the scalp, and how that you're treating your body. Once we have been able to slow the shed and we've been able to see some improvement in the hair texture, many times then we will start to stage our clients' visits for 3 months. And then once we're in a maintenance mode, every 6 months typically is when our clients will come in for a boosting treatment, whether that is the ultrasound, whether that's the exosomes, microneedling, or the PRP injections. And when we have that fluid arrangement and it's structured and it's on everyone's calendar and schedule, you'd finally realize that you're not in fear of going back to that aggressive chronic shed or acute shed, really, that a massive issue that you just went through. And you've stayed very great, right, with staying on your maintenance cycles. However, things happen, life happens, and you went through something that you didn't really even identify because you were feeling great, but your body wasn't. And so it's easier to treat your symptoms with this acute shed that you were experiencing on a very quick, proactive, let's move forward as quickly as we can basis. And as long as everyone is working with us, and because this is a two-way street, we can teach you all day long, but we can't go home with you and hang out in the shower, right? So we need to make sure that you're helping yourself as well.
Absolutely. I think 3 years ago when I had that acute shedding, I spent 3 months treating my hair loss at home, Googling and doing, all that stuff by myself. I'm never going to do the same mistake again. It's like, 2 weeks ago, as soon as I notice hair shedding, I go to you. I go to professionals to get treated because I do not have time to waste. I don't have 3 months to watch my hair fall because then I'm just going to be bald. But my point is that don't waste your time. Go get treated by professionals. That's a little tip for our listeners. As we wrap up today's enlightening conversation with Kimberly Vaughn on intricate connections between Hashimoto's and hair health, I hope you found this episode as informative and empowering as I did. It's clear that understanding and managing your hair health is an essential part of living well with Hashimoto's.
Nataliia, this has been a blast. I mean, I can't wait until we get to do this again. We just have so many things to talk about. I think we could sit here and be here for 2 more hours, right? But the listeners would probably get really tired of listening to us rattle on about Hashimoto's and hair loss, but it is important. And so thank you again for bringing it to the forefront. If your listeners and your audience have any questions, please share our information below in the show notes. And certainly, listener, know that you can reach us at a text, which is 615-975-6726. You can also reach out to us via our website, hpihairpartners.com, and give us a call at any time to schedule your complimentary 15-minute analysis. And as we always say in our world, thank you again and make it a great hair day.
If you enjoyed our talk today and are finding value in our series, I would really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback not only helps us grow and improve, but also connect more listeners who could benefit from our discussions. For those dealing with Hashimoto's and interested in holistic approach to your thyroid health and wellness, I'm also here to support you. Feel free to connect with me for a free consultation where we can discuss more personalized strategies for managing your conditions, focusing on gut health, weight management, and much more. Thank you again for joining us today, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful episodes. Until next time, stay nourished, stay informed, and take a good care of yourself. Goodbye.